Imagine a galaxy where Earth is the punchline to a joke no one bothered to tell us. The aliens laugh at our weapons, mock our soldiers, and dismiss our planet as a backwater mud ball. But today, one man is about to show them why humans are never underestimated twice. If you enjoy stories where humanity proves its worth, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more cinematic HFY tales, and drop a comment below. What weapon from Earth do you think would shock the galaxy most? Now let's begin. The first thing Captain Jace Ward noticed when he stepped into the orbital station was the silence that followed him. The corridor was full of species he had only read about in briefings: chitin-armored insectoids clicking their mandibles, furred lupin warriors with golden eyes, and serpentine beings with scaled skin that shimmered in the sterile light. They all stopped their conversations when the human in olive drab walked past, their gazes dragging over the rifle case slung across his shoulder. Not admiration. Not respect. Just amusement, like watching a child carry a wooden sword into a battlefield of titans. At the far end of the chamber, a group of Galactic scouts waited. Their armor was sleek, seamless plates of alloy that curved with alien anatomy. Their rifles hummed with the restrained menace of energy cells, each weapon able to slice through stone walls like butter. Their commander, a tall, cobalt-skinned soldier with angular features and burning silver eyes, stepped forward. His name was Tvar, and he smiled the way predators do when they find something small and fragile beneath their shadow. "This is Earth's offering?" Tvar's voice was smooth, deep, carrying easily over the chamber. "One soldier. One primitive firearm. Do you intend to impress us with relics?" The laughter came, first from the scouts, then echoing through the chamber as other aliens joined in. The insectoids clattered their mandibles in amusement. The lupins barked sharp, jeering notes. Even the scaled serpents hissed and swayed in mockery. Jace said nothing. He stood with his boots planted, spine straight, jaw set. His expression revealed nothing, though inside, he felt the heat of their contempt crawling across his skin. He had been warned this would happen. Earth had only just been invited to the Galactic Concord. This evaluation, this showcase, was meant to prove whether humanity could contribute anything of value. Most humans sent here were diplomats, scientists, negotiators. But someone had insisted on bringing a soldier, a marksman, and Jace had answered the call. The laughter didn't bother him. He had endured worse. Boot camp hazing, enemy taunts, the sneer of officers who thought snipers were loners playing games in the dirt. He knew the sound of people who believed themselves superior. And he knew how quickly laughter could die when reality arrived. "Step forward," Tvar ordered, gesturing with his long-fingered hand. "Show us your rifle." The council insisted we give you the courtesy. Jace unslung the case and placed it on the metallic table between them. The hiss of seals broke the silence. He opened it carefully, revealing the weapon cradled inside. A precision sniper rifle, matte black steel, bolt action, chambered for a round heavier than anything the scouts' energy weapons could comprehend. One of the scouts snorted. "It has a lever. You must move it by hand after every shot." The others chuckled. "It throws metal, yes?" another said. "Primitive projectiles?" Jace ignored them. He lifted the rifle with the same reverence a swordsman would give a blade passed down through generations. His hands were steady, his touch precise, every movement practiced thousands of times in deserts, mountains, and forests back on Earth. "This is the M98, Jace said evenly. "It doesn't hum. It doesn't glow. It doesn't run dry when the power fails. It fires one round at a time, each one placed exactly where I want it. And that, Commander, is all I need." The chamber went quieter than he expected. Not silent, but wary, because confidence spoken with that kind of calm didn't sound like boasting. It sounded like truth. Tvar tilted his head, studying the human. A quaint philosophy. But war is not patience. War is overwhelming fire, shields, and speed, the ability to burn a city to ash before your enemy blinks. Your weapon belongs in a museum. Jace met his gaze without flinching. "Maybe. But weapons don't win wars. People do." For a moment, the two men stood locked in silence, the hum of the station's air recyclers filling the air between them. Then Tvar smirked, gesturing dismissively. The laughter resumed, though more subdued than before. The Concord delegates began murmuring to one another. One of them, a frail avian species with plumage of deep crimson, leaned to another and whispered too loudly, "This is humanity? A species whose weapons are slower than their words." Jace heard it but again said nothing. He knew restraint was its own kind of weapon. Later, in the observation hall, Jace stood alone at the viewport, staring at the pale curve of Earth far below. He could still hear the laughter ringing in his ears. He thought of the men he had lost in wars the galaxy didn't know about, Men who had fought with courage while the stars beyond Earth's skies had remained silent. He thought of every time humanity had been underestimated, by empires, tyrants, armies larger and stronger, and how history always wrote the same ending: humanity endured. Footsteps approached. It was Colonel Abrams, Earth's senior delegate, his uniform crisp, his expression tight. "They think we're a joke," he muttered, stopping beside Jace. Jace didn't turn from the window. "Good. Let them laugh." "You don't understand," Abrams said. "If they dismiss us here, we lose everything. Trade, protection, access to their technology. Earth will be isolated again, vulnerable. This is more than pride." "I know," Jace said softly. "That's why I'm here." Abrams studied him for a long moment, then nodded, though worry still clouded his features. "Just be ready. They'll push for a trial. They always do when they think they smell weakness." The colonel walked away, leaving Jace alone with the stars. The sniper exhaled slowly, shoulders loosening as he let the moment sink in. A trial. Of course there would be. The scouts wanted a spectacle, something they could laugh at while confirming their own superiority. That was fine. Jace had spent his life preparing for trials no one thought he could survive. Behind him, the reflection in the glass showed the sniper's eyes narrowing, focused, steady. The laughter would end. And when it did, it would end with the sound of a trigger pulling, and silence falling where arrogance once reigned. The training arena smelled of ozone and steel, a vast chamber where gravity could be altered, terrain rearranged, and simulations of entire battlefields conjured in seconds. The Galactic scouts moved through it with effortless precision, their armor glinting as energy pulses cracked the air. Each maneuver was textbook perfection, scouts firing in coordinated arcs, drones sweeping overhead with their scanning beams, blades of shimmering plasma flashing as close-quarters drills ended in swift, brutal efficiency. They weren't just soldiers. They were a spectacle, a performance crafted to intimidate. On the sidelines, the delegates of the Concord applauded politely, their plumage ruffling, mandibles clacking, scaled tails twitching. The message was clear. This was how a modern warrior force conducted itself. Disciplined, armed with elegance, relying on tools that bent physics to their will. Then it was humanity's turn. Jace Ward stepped onto the floor with nothing but his rifle slung over his back, a sidearm at his hip, and a standard-issue combat knife strapped to his thigh. No drones followed. No shimmering shield protected him. Just a man in fatigues and the quiet resolve that had carried him through wars his audience would never comprehend. The simulation sprang to life. A mock urban district, ruined towers and broken streets flickering into existence. The scouts spread through the holographic battlefield, their movements quick and confident. Jace took cover behind a collapsed wall, scanning the angles. The exercise wasn't about killing. They had dampeners and safeties, rules written into the Concord's training code. The point was survival, tactics, and demonstration of skill. The first clash ended in predictable humiliation. Jace fired once, striking a shield that shimmered before bouncing the round harmlessly into the dust. A scout's return shot painted him in simulated plasma fire, the sensors on his vest flaring bright to indicate a lethal hit. The audience laughed again, more openly this time. "Stone Age sticks," someone muttered from the observation deck. Jace rose, reset, and went again. And again the results were the same. Human bullets stopped by shimmering fields, his position revealed instantly by drones sweeping the terrain. Within moments, half the alien delegates had turned away, murmuring that the trial was unnecessary. Humanity had already proven itself inadequate. But Jace was watching, even in defeat. He saw how the scouts moved, how they trusted their shields to cover their flanks, how they bunched close when they thought themselves untouchable. He studied the sweep of the drones, the predictable rhythm of their scans, the blind spots that flickered between beams. He listened to the way the scouts laughed at his efforts, never imagining a man without shields could endure. When the simulation ended, Commander Tvar strode onto the field, his armor shedding sparks of light as the hologram faded. He stopped in front of Jace, silver eyes glinting with amusement. "You see? This is the gulf between us. Your weapon is nothing but noise and smoke. Our shields, our sensors, our discipline, they render you obsolete." Jace wiped the sweat from his brow, meeting the alien's gaze evenly. Funny thing about obsolescence. It only matters if the old thing stops working. That earned him another round of laughter, sharper this time, tinged with mockery. Tvar leaned closer, his voice pitched so the audience could hear. "Do you truly believe your crude stick thrower could kill a scout? You need a miracle. Or perhaps," his smile widened, predatory and cruel, "perhaps you'd care to prove it." The chamber grew quiet. The Concord delegates exchanged glances, whispers rippling like wind across a field. The trial of arms had not yet been declared, but the suggestion hung in the air like the weight of a coming storm. Colonel Abrams stiffened in the gallery, his hands tightening on the railing. He shot a glance at the counselors, already seeing how the momentum shifted. They would seize this opportunity, cloak it in tradition and call for the trial. Earth could hardly refuse. Tvar straightened, addressing the assembly with theatrical flourish. Let us not waste cycles on simulations. Let us honor tradition. If Earth claims its warriors are worthy, let them prove it in the trial of arms. One human against one squad of scouts. Primitive against advanced. If he survives, Earth earns its place among us. If he falls, then at least their death will be a spectacle worth remembering. Applause broke out, not unanimous but strong enough. The Concord loved trials. They loved contests where the outcome seemed certain, loved reaffirming the hierarchy of species. It was theater as much as test. Abrams stepped forward, his face pale. This is irregular. Humanity is still new to the Concord. Surely what? Tvar interrupted smoothly. Surely you fear to prove yourselves? Surely you would rather be coddled, admitted without struggle? That is not the way of the Concord. We test all who seek membership. Eyes turned to Jace. He felt their weight, the scrutiny of species older than his civilization, eyes filled with mockery, curiosity, or disdain. He could feel Abrams' unspoken plea to remain silent, to avoid falling into the trap. He could feel the scout's certainty that he would refuse. Jace adjusted the strap of his rifle and said, "I'll do it." The words cut through the chamber like a shot. Silence followed. Even Tvar blinked once, taken off guard by the speed of his acceptance. Abrams hissed, stepping close. "Jace, don't." But Jace kept his eyes on the alien commander. "You want a trial? Fine. I'll give you one. Just make sure you're watching closely when it happens." Tvar's smile returned, slow and sharp. "So be it. Tomorrow at cycle's dawn. The arena will be prepared." He turned, signaling to his squad. "Enjoy your last night, human. Tomorrow your relic will break against the future." The scouts departed in perfect formation, armor gleaming, laughter echoing as they left. Jace remained standing in the middle of the chamber, still as stone, his rifle case resting against his leg. He didn't look at the audience, didn't flinch at their whispers, didn't respond to Abrams' frantic muttering. He only stared at the doorway where the scouts had gone, his jaw tight, his eyes cold. He knew exactly what tomorrow would bring. He knew what they expected: humiliation, failure, spectacle. But he also knew something they didn't. He had spent his life waiting, watching, moving unseen. The galaxy thought war was about spectacle. Jace knew better. War was patience. War was silence. War was the moment when a single, perfectly placed bullet could rewrite the future. And tomorrow the galaxy would learn. The arena's walls shimmered as the simulation loaded, light weaving itself into the form of a hostile moon. Mountains rose jagged and sharp under a crimson sky, valleys cut deep with black rivers, and twisted forests spread in warped, skeletal shapes. Wind howled across the barren terrain, carrying dust that stung the eyes and clogged the throat. The Concord's engineers designed the space to be merciless, a proving ground where only skill and will determine survival. Above, in the observation tiers, alien dignitaries filled the stands. Their bodies glimmered with feathers, scales, and fur, their voices low with anticipation. This was not just a trial, it was theater, the kind of drama that bound the Concord's fractured species together. They were united in their expectation. The human would fall, and they would laugh at the echo of his failure. On the field, Jace Ward crouched low, rifle pressed to his shoulder. His fatigues were already caked in dust, the matte black steel of his weapon blending against the rock. He breathed slow and deep, heart steady, mind quiet. Across the simulation the scouts deployed in formation. 10 soldiers, armored in cobalt alloy, shields shimmering faintly around their bodies. Drones lifted from their shoulders, whirring into the air like predatory insects, beams sweeping arcs to detect motion and heat. Their weapons hummed with restrained energy, power enough to burn holes through walls. At their center marched Commander Tvar, tall and certain, silver eyes scanning the terrain as though this battlefield already belonged to him. He carried a long rifle of his own, sleek and deadly, but unlike Jace, he didn't carry it with reverence. To Tvar the weapon was just another tool. His faith rested in his squad, their technology, and the shields that had never failed him. "Begin," the voice of the counselor intoned, echoing across the chamber. The scouts fanned out, their boots crunching over the rocky ground. They moved fast, coordinated, confident. Their drones swept ahead, sensors probing, sweeping beams overlapping to eliminate blind spots. They weren't hunting a soldier, they were hunting a primitive animal with no chance of striking back. Jace lay prone on a ridge, his cheek against the rifle stock. He had chosen this spot before the simulation even started, memorizing the terrain in the seconds as it loaded, marking angles, wind patterns and elevation lines. His world narrowed to crosshairs, to distances measured in heartbeats. He watched the scouts move, their shields glowing faintly in the dust. Patience. Always patience. The first scout paused at the edge of a ruined wall, gesturing for the others to flank. His shield pulsed faintly as it adjusted to the environment, recalibrating to block energy signatures. But shields weren't built for what Jace carried. They were designed against plasma, against light twisted into violence. They weren't designed for steel. Jace exhaled and squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, thunderous in the thin air. A round of dense metal cut through distance, struck the scout's helmet with unrelenting force, and shattered it like glass. The alien dropped instantly, body twitching once before going still. For a moment nothing moved. Then the stands erupted. Gasps, cries, the sharp clatter of mandibles and the shrieks of avians. The Concorde had expected spectacle, but not this. Not blood on the first shot. On the field, the scouts hesitated. Then they roared in fury, shields flaring as they closed ranks. Drones spun wildly, beams slashing the ground as they searched for the source. Jace slid back, rolling into cover. He reloaded with smooth precision, the bolt snapping forward, the rifle ready again. He didn't wait for the drones to find him. He moved, crawling low, using rocks and twisted trees for cover, always staying ahead of the sweeps. His movements were slow, deliberate, honed by years of stalking enemies who thought themselves invincible. The scouts moved differently now, no longer mocking, no longer careless. They pressed tighter together, covering one another with overlapping fields of fire. But Jace saw the flaw immediately. They clustered, believing their shields made them untouchable. To Jace, it meant one bullet could pass through two heads if placed correctly. The second shot cracked. Another scout fell, the round piercing shield, helmet, and brain in a single heartbeat. The arena roared louder than before. The laughter had vanished. Now there was only shock, disbelief, and the growing awareness that the human was not prey but predator. Tvar barked orders, his voice sharp, silver eyes burning with something that might have been unease. The scouts dispersed wider, drones tightening their scan nets, beams cutting dangerously close to Jace's path. He lay flat beneath a ridge, letting dust cake over his body, slowing his breathing until it matched the wind. The drone beam passed within inches, searching for heat, for energy. It found nothing. His rifle didn't glow. His rounds carried no charge. To the alien technology, Jace was invisible. He waited, still as stone, as a scout crept past, shield flickering faintly. Jace lined up the shot, exhaled and fired. The round struck the scout's spine, shattering armor, dropping him screaming into the dust. The stands fell silent. The Concorde's smug certainty cracked under the weight of three bodies. They leaned forward now, watching not for spectacle but for survival, for the question of whether the impossible was happening. Tvar snarled, his control slipping. He gestured sharply, sending three of his soldiers in a sweep around the ridge. They advanced fast, weapons flaring, drones circling overhead. This time Jace couldn't stay still. He rolled, ducked behind broken stone, firing once more as he moved. Another scout fell, throat opened by a round that no shield could deflect. The remaining two reached the ridge, weapons ready. Jace ducked, feeling plasma scorch stone where his head had been. He dropped his rifle, drew his sidearm and fired twice. One scout collapsed. The other lunged forward, blade igniting in a searing arc. Jace sidestepped, letting the blade hiss past his chest, then drove his knife into the gap of the scout's armor beneath the arm. He twisted, yanked the weapon free and shoved the body aside. The alien fell, twitching, armor dark with simulated blood. The crowd erupted, but not with laughter. This was something else, something raw, unsettled. Whispers spread through the tiers, voices clashing, the Concorde no longer united in their mockery. 4 scouts dead. Their bodies littered the dust, shields shattered by steel and silence. Tvar stood rigid in the center of the battlefield, his silver eyes locked on Jace. His squad was failing, crumbling, and the human wasn't even breathing hard. For the first time, arrogance slipped, replaced by something colder, anger. He stepped forward, raising his weapon. The drones tightened their sweeps, the surviving scouts regrouping. But the spectacle had already shifted. The Concorde wasn't watching the scouts anymore. They were watching Jace, the lone figure moving with lethal patience, the man who had turned their laughter into silence. Jace wiped dust from his brow, slid another round into his rifle and set his sights again. He had promised the colonel the laughter would end. And now, as the battlefield quieted, all he could hear was his own breathing, steady and controlled. The trial had only just begun. The battlefield had changed. Where once the scouts moved like predators sweeping a cage, now they stalked with unease, their silver commander's voice cutting sharper than the wind as he forced them back into order. 5 of his soldiers lay in the dust, shields shattered, armor ruined, their bodies reminders that arrogance had a cost. The crowd above, once drunk on laughter, now leaned forward in silence, their eyes locked on the lone human crouched with a rifle across his knees. Jace breathed slow, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with the wind. He had seen squads crumble before, seen confidence rot into fear, and he knew the signs. Their steps were shorter now, their scans faster, their eyes darting. The scouts no longer moved like hunters. They moved like prey that hadn't realized it yet. Tvar barked orders, sending 2 of his remaining soldiers to sweep high ground, while the drones fanned out in a net so tight that even Jace's stillness would eventually be found. The alien commander's composure had not broken completely, but his tone betrayed strain, a tremor of disbelief every time another soldier failed to return. Jace slid into the shadow of a broken tree, his body pressed low, his rifle steady in the crook of his arm. He had learned long ago that panic killed quicker than bullets. The scouts panicked. He waited. A drone swept near, its beam slicing across the bark. Jace let it pass, counting seconds between sweeps. 2 breaths later, a scout crossed into view, shield glowing faintly against the dim red light of the simulated sky. Jace fired once. The round tore through the alien's chest, shield flickering before it collapsed. The body hit the ground with a hollow thud. The audience gasped, but Jace barely noticed. He was already moving, already repositioning before the drones locked onto the shot. His boots scraped stone, his weight rolling across dust. He crawled into a new nest as plasma fire burned the rocks where he had been seconds earlier. Another scout cursed in a guttural tongue, his voice high with desperation. They fired wildly, burning holes through the environment, but they weren't hitting Jace. The battlefield was no longer theirs. Tvar's silver eyes narrowed as he watched his men falter. He snapped his rifle to his shoulder and took aim himself, firing a beam that lit the ridge in molten glass. The crowd cheered at the display, though their cheers faltered when no human body appeared. "Coward!" Tvar shouted into the wind. "You hide like an animal. Face me in open combat." Jace ignored the taunt. He had been called worse, and the dead never cared whether you killed them face to face or from a mile away. He exhaled, his crosshairs steady on another target. The 8th scout fell before his commander's eyes. The chamber above fell into near silence. The Concord had come to laugh at the spectacle of Earth's failure. Now they were watching history shift, one bullet at a time. Jace's muscles ached, dust stung his eyes, but his mind was razor-sharp. Every kill was another crack in the illusion of alien invincibility. Every pull of the trigger was proof that patience and precision could carve holes in arrogance. Tvar's face hardened. He gestured sharply, pulling the last of his squad into a defensive circle. Shields overlapped, drones orbited in a dense cloud, weapons bristled outward. It was a fortress in motion, designed to crush any enemy with superior numbers. But Jace had seen fortresses fall. He shifted position, crawling along the ridge until the circle came into view. He studied it, eyes tracing patterns, searching for weakness. It was there, always there. Nothing was invulnerable. Not men. Not machines. Not even shields. His finger brushed the trigger. His breath slowed. He fired. The round struck where 2 shields overlapped, slipping between their frequencies. The bullet ricocheted inside, tearing through a scout's shoulder before lodging in the neck. The alien dropped, choking on dust. Chaos erupted. The fortress fractured, soldiers shouting, drones jerking wildly as their formation broke. Jace rolled away, reloading, every movement efficient and practiced. He had no joy in the kill, no anger, no fear. He was the steady rhythm of inevitability, the heartbeat of silence before violence. When the smoke cleared, only Tvar remained standing. His silver eyes glowed with fury, his shield shimmering brighter than the others, reinforced by every ounce of his armor's energy. He held his weapon low, blade extended, humming with destructive power. The audience held its breath. The squad was gone. The trial was no longer between a human and a team. It was between 2 men. Tvar pointed the blade at Jace, his voice cutting across the field. Enough games. You will not kill me from the shadows, primitive. You will face me here or you will die cowering. Jace slung his rifle across his back and drew his sidearm, his eyes fixed on the commander. He didn't rise to the insult, didn't waste words. He knew the truth. Tvar wanted rage. Rage made men sloppy. Jace had no intention of being sloppy. The commander advanced, his blade humming, his shield shimmering with energy. Every step was heavy, deliberate, a predator circling the last prey. But Jace didn't move like prey. He shifted, angled, every step measured. They circled each other, silence pressing on the arena. Every eye in the chamber was fixed on the duel. The Concord leaned forward, waiting for the clash, waiting to see whether the human streak of impossible kills would end in blood. Tvar lunged, his blade cutting an arc of light. Jace dodged, sidearm snapping up, firing once. The round struck the shield, deflecting harmlessly. Sparks flared where steel met energy. Another shot. Another spark. Tvar laughed, driving forward, blade slashing stone and dust as he pressed the human back. But Jace's eyes weren't panicked. They were calculating. Every shot wasn't wasted. It was measured, testing the shield's rhythm, the cycle of its oscillation, the flicker in its frequency. He fired again, the sound sharp against the wind. And for the first time, Tvar's shield stuttered. The commander froze for half a breath, his silver eyes flashing with sudden realization. Jace had found the weakness. The audience erupted into a roar, not with laughter, not with mockery, but with something raw and unsettled. They had seen it too. The human wasn't firing wildly. He was hunting, and he had locked his sights on the commander. Tvar snarled, lunging again, his blade whistling. Jace rolled aside, his boots scraping stone, his sidearm barking twice more. The shield flared, dimmed, then stabilized, but not completely. The cycle was breaking. The pattern was exposed. Jace rose to one knee, calm as stone, his sidearm steady. His voice was quiet, carrying only to the commander who stood yards away. Shields don't stop bullets. They only delay them. Tvar's laugh was harsh, desperate. You will die here, human? Maybe, Jace said. He holstered the sidearm and unslung his rifle, chambering one last round. But not today. The two men faced each other across the dust, one shielded in alien brilliance, the other cloaked only in patience and steel. Above, the audience had gone silent, breath caught in their throats. The duel was no longer a spectacle. It was judgment. And when the trigger was pulled, the galaxy would know which predator ruled this battlefield. The battlefield was burning, not with fire, but with the streaking brilliance of plasma, the thunderous concussion of alien cannons, and the metallic tang of torn earth and shattered armor. Marcus pressed his cheek against the stock of his rifle, breathing steady, every motion honed from a lifetime of patient practice. Around him, the Galactic scouts were shouting in disbelief, their precision formations shredded by enemies who moved with terrifying efficiency. They had fought wars across the stars, but none of them had ever seen what a human sniper could do when the world around him demanded nothing less than perfection. The command channel was chaos, officers barking frantic orders in alien tongues, overlapping, cutting through each other like static. Through it all, Marcus only listened to his spotter, Lieutenant Aaron Holt, who crouched beside him with binoculars, calm in the storm. 200 meters left ridge, Holt said evenly, voice crisp. Shield carrier. Drop him and their line collapses. Marcus didn't hesitate. The alien shield bearer was massive, covered in armor that shimmered with a distortion field that bent light and deflected energy. Every plasma round the scouts had thrown at it evaporated in a meaningless haze. But Marcus's rifle didn't fire plasma. His bullet, a slug of tungsten jacketed in steel, cut through the air unseen, undeterred by bending light. The report of the shot was sharp, almost primitive. A second later, the giant collapsed, field sputtering into nothing. The scouts gasped audibly across the comms. Their formation rallied for the first time all day. Marcus chambered another round. His world narrowed to a series of calculations. Wind, distance, the tilt of his rifle barrel, the angle of the alien's armor. Each pull of the trigger silenced an enemy leader, cut apart the careful structure of the invasion force, and gave the scouts something they had lost the moment the battle began: hope. But Marcus wasn't invincible. The aliens adapted quickly. Gunships streaked through the sky, spewing plasma bombardments that churned the ground around his concealed nest. Shards of dirt and stone rained over him, stinging like needles, yet his hands never faltered. Holt adjusted positions, scanning targets with cold precision. Clockwise sweep, Holt muttered. They're circling us. 30 seconds before they pin this ridge. Marcus's teeth clenched. If they lost the ridge, the battle was done. He steadied his breathing, found the lead gunship, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck the pilot's canopy, a hair-thin crack fracturing across the alien alloy. A second shot split the fracture wider until the cockpit imploded, the gunship spiraling into the enemy's own ranks in a blossoming fireball. Holt barked a laugh, short and fierce. That's one way to clear the skies. The scouts moved like they had never moved before, inspired by the rhythm of a weapon they once dismissed as crude. Their plasma rifles cut swathes where Marcus opened gaps, the tide of the battle shifting. Even alien commanders began to hesitate, their strategies unraveling each time a rifle cracked and another officer fell. The Galactic scouts had mocked Earth's weapons, but now, every alien in earshot flinched at the sound of a human pulling the trigger. Still, Marcus felt the weight building. His magazine ran thin, every round precious. Holt's updates came faster, sharper. 2 flanking left, 3 heavy infantry front, sniper drones sweeping right sky. Marcus rotated, fired again, every shot ending with alien steel and flesh crumpling. Yet for each one he dropped, more surged forward. The alien commander finally revealed himself. A towering figure of obsidian armor, eyes glowing beneath a helm of cruel angles, he waded through his own troops as though they were nothing. Plasma fire washed harmlessly off his armor, and even the scouts' heavy cannons glanced away. The alien general raised his blade, cutting down soldiers with contemptuous swipes. Marcus felt his stomach sink. This was the center of the storm, the fulcrum of their defeat if he couldn't end it. Holt saw it too. General, 300 meters. No shield carrier. He's the keystone, Marcus. Drop him or we're finished. Marcus exhaled, slow. He'd only have one shot. The general moved erratically, weaving through the battle, never still for long. Marcus tracked him, heartbeat sinking with the sway of the scope. His finger tightened, then loosened. The general shifted at the last second, and Marcus refused to waste the round. He waited. A plasma bolt exploded near his cover, nearly throwing him flat, but he stayed firm. Holt shouted something he barely heard. Then the general raised his weapon high to deliver a killing strike, body exposed for a heartbeat too long. Marcus pulled the trigger. The crack echoed across the field. The bullet tore through armor, through flesh, through the arrogance of an empire that thought humans primitive. The alien general staggered, his blade tumbling from his grip. The battlefield stilled, every alien eye widening as their leader collapsed, lifeblood spilling across alien soil. For a moment, silence. Then the scouts roared, voices rising in unison, a sound of disbelief turned to triumph. They surged forward with renewed ferocity, pushing the enemy back, carving them apart in a storm of plasma. Marcus chambered his last round, scanning, ensuring the general did not rise again. He didn't. When the fighting finally ebbed, the battlefield was a graveyard of smoldering machines and broken bodies. The Galactic scouts stood victorious, battered but alive. And every single one of them turned to the man lying prone on the ridge, his rifle still smoking, eyes steady as though the battle had never touched him. A commander of the scouts approached, his armor scorched, his pride nowhere in sight. He looked down at Marcus with something bordering on awe. You, the alien's voice faltered, then steadied. You carry a weapon that is not of the stars, yet you strike with the power of gods. Your people, your kind, you are not what we believed. Marcus slowly sat up, wiping grime from his face, exhausted to his marrow. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just reloaded, the metallic click echoing louder than any applause. Holt clapped him on the shoulder, his grin weary but fierce. Guess they're not laughing now. The scouts didn't laugh. They bowed. And on that war-torn ridge, with smoke curling into the alien skies, the universe learned a lesson it would never forget. Humanity, underestimated and dismissed, had teeth sharper than any predator. And when a human pulled the trigger, the galaxy itself trembled.